Chapter 8 talks about metabolism. And I know most of us, when we think of metabolism, that's breaking down our food. As we get older, we don't metabolize our food as well, and that's why we get a little sturdy, a little chunky, if you want to say that. And we do, our metabolism does slow down. Metabolism just isn't breaking down your food. All the chemical reactions that occur in your body are metabolism. So breaking down food, building proteins from amino acids, all that stuff, that's all metabolism. So don't limit it to just, breaking down your food and using it for energy. Okay. So the energy of life, all right, living cell is a miniature chemical factory. There's thousands of reactions that occur. It's amazing all the things that our cells can do. Little tiny substance that we can barely see, and it's doing all this work. Okay. Cells extract energy stored in sugars. Okay. The main sugar, glucose. Okay. We can get a lot of energy from glucose. That's what we break it down to. Other fuels, there's some other things that perform work, but really sugars is what we get most of our energy from. Okay. They can even convert, we can even take some, not us, but we have some organisms that can even convert energy to light, and bioluminescence, fireflies, things like that. Okay. So an organism's metabolism transforms matter and energy, and it's called thermodynamics. We're not going to get really into that. We talk about that in chemistry, you talk about that in physics. We're not going to cover it, but thermodynamics, thermal, heat. What are we doing with that heat? Okay. So when you talk about metabolism, like I said, it's the total of all the chemical reactions, not just breaking down our food. Okay. It's breaking down, it's building up, it's everything. All these chemical reactions that occur in our body is metabolism. Okay. It's an emergent property of life. Okay. It arises from these orderly interactions. They have changed through time. Okay, to allow us to do things and allow us not to do other things. Okay, and if we mess up our metabolism, we're going to have some issues. Okay, if we're missing some parts of it, some enzymes or whatever, there's going to be some problems. So metabolism, is very, very specific. Okay, a pathway. Okay, metabolic pathway can be a couple enzymes. It can be several. It just depends on what you're looking for, what chemical reaction needs to occur. Okay, and it begins with a specific molecule and it ends with a product, but how many steps in between, it just depends on the molecule you start with and the product you need in the end. Okay, each step is catalyzed. Okay, catalyzed means causes to happen by a specific enzyme. And it's funny, the enzymes are very specific. We have hundreds and even thousands of enzymes because we need them. There isn't like a one enzyme to take care of like 5 different reactions. Each one has its own. So they're very, very specific. And an enzyme is a protein. Okay, but we have lots and lots and lots and lots of them. Remember, all the information to build them all is in our DNA. Okay, so here's a small reaction. Okay, we start with a molecule. It goes through reaction. It starts here at A and it goes through one reaction. It becomes B. And then there's an enzyme that controls that. Okay, then B goes through reaction to become C. And again, there's another enzyme. These are different enzymes. And then it has to go through one more to produce the product enzyme, the third enzyme, reaction 3. Sometimes it has more steps, sometimes it has less. It just depends. But again, there's enzymes that control each one, and it keeps going through different reactions until you get to the product you want at the end. Okay? So there's pathways, and they release energy. These pathways release energy. They break down complex molecules into simple molecules. Okay? And when they do that, they get energy. It's kind of like us burning a piece of wood. You're taking a big structure and you're breaking it down into smaller parts. You're going to get ash when you're done, but you're going to get some heat. You're going to get some energy by burning it. Okay. In cellular respiration, okay, I know when we think of respiration, we think of breathing, but cellular respiration is getting energy, and it happens in your mitochondria. Okay. But we break down glucose in the presence of oxygen. Okay. We need oxygen. And then that's one pathway that occurs. Catabolism is breaking down. Okay, anabolism, we'll talk about later, is building up. So again, when we talk about metabolism, it's not just breaking down, but it's also building too. Okay, so when I just said this, anabolic pathways is where we consume energy to build stuff. Okay, so if you're breaking it down, it's catabolic. If you're building it, it's anabolic. And the way I remember that is if you think about anabolic steroids, remember Muscle builders take these and they're building muscle. Okay, so anabolic means to build. Okay, so anabolic takes energy, catabolic releases energy. Okay, the synthesis of a protein from amino acids is a really good example of anabolism. Okay, taking all those amino acids, organizing them, and it's called translation, if you remember that from your assignment way back in like probably chapter 2. But it's a form of anabolism because you're going to build something. Okay, they have something called bioenergetics. It's where you actually study how the energy flows through a living organism. Okay, where is it gotten from? Where is it broken down? Where is it, where do they put it when they're done with it? What is it used for? And so on. Okay, and there's some people that have issues, they have problems, so that they look at, okay, where is the problem? Maybe we need to add this to your diet or do this or whatever. So it helps people when they're having issues with their energy flow. Okay, so we're talking about forms of energy. Energy is the ability to do work or to cause change. All right, so we need energy. We use energy in all kinds of different forms, but we need energy to move, to talk, to think, to, breathe, all that stuff. Okay, energy comes in various forms, some which can actually perform physical work. Some, like, when you're thinking, you don't really see that, but you need energy for that. So again, I should probably go back there. When you're talking about various forms of energy, we're looking at doing something. There's going to be some sort of project performed, or there's going to be something done when you use energy. Okay, so when we talk about biological things, we're talking about living things. Okay, what cells do is they take and order things. They make things so that they're more organized. Okay, they'll take less ordered materials and make them ordered. So cells organize living things. That's their job. They take disorder and make order out of it. Okay, they replace ordered forms of matter. Okay, so if we're going to replace ordered forms of matter, then energy is going to be released from less ordered forms. So if we take less order, we organize them, we're going to get energy from that. Okay, so if we take things and we break them down into smaller parts, we're going to get energy. Okay, energy flows, an ecosystem, we really haven't talked about that, but an ecosystem is kind of the environment that you lived in, all the things, all the living things, all the non-living things, and all that. But in a whole ecosystem, in the whole environment, energy flows into an ecosystem in the form of light coming from the sun. The sun is our ultimate source of all energy. And it exits in the form of heat. Okay? So those are the two of the forms of energy that living things use. Okay? They call exogenic and endogenic. And remember, exo meaning outside, endo meaning inside. You have these happen with metabolism. Okay? An exogenic reaction has a net release of free energy. In other words, it can produce energy. It's spontaneous. You don't have to add things to it to make it happen. It's just going to happen. Okay. An example would be like, well, that would not be in a living thing, but I was just thinking, when you remove energy from water, it freezes. Okay. Okay. Endogenic absorbs free energy from its surrounding, and it's non-spontaneous. So if you were talking about the water situation, when you melt ice, in order for ice to melt, it needs energy. Okay, that's non-spontaneous. It requires energy. So that's not an example in a living thing, but exogenic reaction has a net release of free energy. It's spontaneous. Endogenic is not. Okay, so energetic is going to absorb energy from its surroundings. In this case, what I was talking about, the water, would be heat. Okay. All right, equilibrium and metabolism. Now, you would think that we'd want equilibrium in our body because we like things to be balanced. But honestly, that never happens with metabolism. We always have to add stuff into it. We always have to eat. We have to add energy into it. So it's kind of a closed system. Well, it would be in a closed system, you'd have, eventually there'd be equilibrium. So we're basically, we're kind of a closed system, but we always have to add energy. Always, always, always. If you don't eat, you don't drink water, you die. So there's no equilibrium that occurs in us. Okay, cells are never at equilibrium. They're open systems. They experience a flow, constant flow in and out. Okay, And again, if they did reach equilibrium, that means when we got to a certain point, we'd never have to eat again. And we know that's not going to happen, right? So cells are not closed. They never reach equilibrium. There's a constant flow. And again, just think of us as all living things have to take in material and have to get rid of waste. It's a never-ending flow. We don't have our material and our waste the same ever. We're never at equilibrium, okay? So the defining feature of life for all living things is metabolism is never at equilibrium, okay? The energy brought in and the energy produced are never the same. Because again, we have to keep adding stuff in. We have to keep eating. We have to keep putting in more materials, okay? So the catabolic pathway in a cell releases free energy in a series of reactions, but again, it has to have constant materials being added to it, okay? All right, so the power, where do we get our power from? And we've talked about it a little bit. We talked about ATP, adrenal triphosphate, and I'm going to show you the structure of it, and I'll show you where we get that energy from, okay? So these are the three main kinds of work that our cells do, okay? And they're powered again by ATP. Chemical, okay? There's all kinds of chemical going there. We transport things, and then we get movement. We get mechanical stuff happening. You know, I'm shrugging my shoulders now. That's because I'm using ATP. I should probably use more, so, you know. But anyway, the three main kinds of work that's done by a cell is chemical, the transport, and mechanical. Those are the three things, okay? So when we talk about ATP, what happens is it stands for adenosine triphosphate. It has 3 high energy phosphate bonds, okay? And what happens is when we have ATP, we have water come in, hydrolysis, and the water comes in and it breaks one of those high energy bonds, and that's where we get the energy from. So now you have ADP, adrenaline diphosphate. So it goes back and says, hey, hit me up. Give me another phosphate group. Okay. Take away the water, throw in a phosphate. Now we can go back and do something in. So it's constantly being changed from ATP to ADP, to ATP to ADP. So we recycle it. Okay. ATP is a sugar, ribose, just like RNA. Okay. It has adenine, which is one of the nitrogen bases, and 3 phosphate groups. So it's kind of, you know, DNA is a sugar, a phosphate, and a base. We have 4 different bases. Well, ATP is just the sugar ribose, one of the nitrogen bases, adenine, and then it has 3 phosphate groups, whereas DNA just has 1 per sugar. They have 3 per sugar. Okay, so here's that sugar, that's ribose. Here's our triphosphates right here. There's 3 phosphate groups here, and this is adenine too. Okay, this is our nitrogen base. All right. Oh, sorry, this is the nitrogen base. I said that wrong. Here's the sugar. Here's the nitrogen base, and then from the sugars you have your 3 phosphates. Okay, so these have high energy bonds. So what'll happen is, okay, you take your ATP, you add water. Water breaks off one of those little those high energy bonds. Okay, then we use this energy. Okay, now it's like, okay, now we got ADP. So we use this energy, and then the ADP is like, well, I got to go get that back on again. So it goes back and it gets the energy plopped on it again. The cell do that in the mitochondria, and then it'll bring it back. So it's kind of like, you know, we put gas in our car all the time. Well, this is our gas right here. This is what is the energy for our cells to do all their stuff. So it's basically taking ATP, adding water, and it breaks off this high energy bond. We use that energy. And then the ADP goes back and they pop it on there again, and it keeps, so we keep recycling. Okay, so the bonds between the phosphate groups of ATP tail can be broken by hydrolysis, adding water, and then the energy is released from that bond, okay, from that ATP bond, and then it can go back again, and we release the energy, the chemical state, we lower the free energy, and then the phosphate bond themselves can go back and be added again. Well, we're just about at our 15 minutes, so I'm going to quit right here, and we should get this chapter done in 2 parts. So I'll see you when I get to part 2.